Hi everyone, I'm Wudijo. I'm a content creator. You might know me maybe from other ARPGs like Diablo or Path of Exile. And today I have something quite special. I'm here in Paris at the EKO Software studio to talk about the new and upcoming game Dragonkin, another ARPG. I'm quite excited about it, and you're also going to see some more of my own content about this game. But I'm here with some of the head of the developers, and maybe you want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Charlie, the producer of the game.
Hi, I'm Jonathan, lead game designer on Dragonkin, and we've been working on this project for 3 years now, so we're ready to share about it now.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited to be here, so I want to thank you very much for the opportunity. And if you didn't know yet, Dragonkin is coming into early access right now as this video goes live. So they have been working on this for a long time, and very excited to share all of the details with you. So can you give us just a quick rundown? What is Dragonkin about? Like what makes it special compared to other RPGs, which is like a pretty, like up and coming genre basically these days. A lot of games are coming out. So what makes Dragonkin special here?
Well, one of the key features of Dragonkin is of course the dragons. Everything is themed about dragons, from the heroes to the environment to the enemies. And we are just a small team of 30 people, so we are trying to have something different from the big games of the genre. We'll talk about it later, but the Ancestral Grid, we have our characters that are pretty much unique, I'd say.
Yeah, a big city to explore.
Yeah, a big city, and yeah, we're trying some different things.
I know that it's not the first ARPG or hack and slash game that you have made, which is it's the second one for the studio at least, and I guess there's a lot of experienced developers here that have already worked on other games in the genre, which is called Chaos Bane. So what are maybe the learnings that you had coming from the original game to Dragonkin, and what did you change?
Well, one big thing for sure is the engine.
Yes, we were at the time working on our own house engine, but for Dragonkin we switched to Unreal Engine, which made us a lot of change. And this time with Dragonkin we have the opportunity to dive into our own universe as well. So we are excited to share it with everyone.
Okay, that's very exciting to hear. And for Dragonkin, we just talked about the dragons a little bit being like a really big part of the game. And how are you actually introduced to that dragon storyline? Can you tell us more about the prologue, maybe?
So yeah, we have this big sequence at the beginning of the game, of the story. The prologue, we introduce to the world and the story in this high action sequence, very epic. We play every character in succession for a few minutes, and yeah, it's a way to introduce the story about the big dragon lord to the players while playing with a high-level character with a lot of great skills and powerful abilities.
So you get introduced to all the classes and you kind of see what they're about.
Yeah, just before choosing your character for real and playing from scratch.
Okay. Okay. So it's a very good way to actually get introduced to the game and just show what's available. So can you talk about the classes individually a little bit?
So my favorite class, personally, I will start with the Oracle. She is basically a mage, which has electric powers that she gained through an old blue dragon, which is not part of this world anymore. But she has also a lot of teleportation skills, like her dodge is a quick teleport on a short distance. She also has a longer skill teleport, and she managed to have this feeling of powers that I really like personally.
So we have this third class, the Barbarian. He's also a Dragonkin, so a half dragon, but this one has ice power. And of course, it's the class for the classic spin-to-win experience. Many powerful attacks, AoE attacks, and all this. And of course, he has a rage gauge to get stronger, that he has to keep high, and yeah, that's the barbarian for you.
And can you tell us about any other classes maybe coming later?
So yeah, I think we can talk about the tracker, which is the fourth class available only in the prologue during the early access, but she will come in a later update. It's a class more based on distant combat with a classic arrow and bow, but she also has a claw on her arm that helps to combat more on a close range, like with a toxic slash, things like that. She can be quite enjoyable, especially with her mobility, I guess.
Yeah, high mobility, high damage over time. It's another type of character.
So, since we just spoke about the 4 different classes that are going to be in the game, at least like at the end of the early access, so I guess the 4th class is coming with at least a full release of the game?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the mechanics that people actually get to interact with as they build their character. So you already mentioned, for example, the Ancestral Grid. Can you talk more about that? Like how does that work?
Yeah, the Ancestral Grid is our main feature for the skill customization. Our goal was to make the skill system as important as the equipment looting, so that every fragment that you can loot during battle or during quest is an important thing that you will look at, see the new modifier, the new skill that you obtain, and try to optimize in your grid the placement and the modifiers that you will put on your skill, so that you can trigger new things, improve your skill, or even activate a few things, like in the video we released a few weeks before. The symbiosis, all things like this.
So what is the idea behind the system? Like, why did you make it that way exactly? So what do you want people to do with that?
As I said before, we really wanted to have the skill as important as the loot. But of course we took some big inspiration from similar game like Path of Exile, but also from various sources like board games, because it looks like a puzzle in a way. So yeah, it comes from various inspiration, various sources.
Yeah, I've been playing around with it a little bit myself earlier, and I found the system quite intriguing. And it seems like that basically no 2 characters will ever look exactly the same. Like if someone tries to follow a certain setup, they will probably get pretty close. But because of the randomized loot and how you acquire the pieces for the Ancestral Grid, you will not really get to exactly the same setup as anyone else. Is that intentional?
Yeah, I won't say it was one of our goals, but yeah, it's a side effect of the system that you cannot just look up a build on the internet and just copy it, but you might get close.
Especially with the Wyrmling, which is a big part also in the Ancestral Grid. We have 4 of them in the game, 1 ice, 1 fire, 1 electric and 1 toxic. And they can be played by each class, but they have their own skill that can be triggered by the hero skill, so it can expand the possibility quite a lot.
So effectively you have active skills and modifiers to those skills, and then you also have the Wyrmling, like passive and triggered abilities.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about the Wyrmlings?
The Wyrmling is a weapon developed by the trackers. Yeah, thanks. It's the hero the player will be playing. Is kind of the first of his kind to have a Wyrmling as a weapon. It's not really approved by everyone in our universe, but it's like fighting fire with fire, I guess. So the Wyrmling is its own character, I guess, because they level up as your character level ups. They have their own level, they have their own passive skill tree, and they really act as equipment for your character, because they can add so much more statistics and skills, as we said.
And for the theory craft aspect. They are more like a specialization, really. So you have your character, and a layer above is your Wyrmling.
So about this Wyrmling, it follows you into combat and it's always by your side.
Yep.
Does it mean that everyone is effectively playing like a minion build, or is that still different from, for example, a typical summoner archetype?
Of course, it was one of the things we didn't want to impose. It's not a pet, it's not a minion. It's really part of your build, it's really part of your character, and it's mostly trigger effects on your character. But yeah, he's always there, he's always playing with you and fighting with you.
Can you tell us maybe a bit more about how else do you specialize your character besides the equipment, the Wyrmling and the Ancestral Grid? So what other systems are in place?
Yeah, of course, since it's an hack and slash game, we have a big itemization system with random loot, with specific affix on your gear. But we also have this talent system that you can access from your Wyrmling, but also from your gear. Only higher rarity gear, of course. This talent system is about getting key passive, very strong passive, that you will only get from this point system that you get from the gear or the Wyrmling. And the more points you have in those passive, the stronger they get. So this is one of the itemization system.
Okay. Maybe while we're on the topic of items, can you tell us a little bit more about how does the system work with rarities, with stats on the gear? Is there like special item slots maybe that are interesting here?
Well, we have a few classic equipment slots. Every item has a few affixes. Higher rarity have a higher number of affixes, and we have a few features that are still being developed.
Yeah, basically we have the basic rarity like uncommon, rare, legendary, mythical, and so on. We also have like divine gears we can obtain, corrupted one.
Some very specific type of equipment that are very rare, that add additional affix or stronger affixes, all those classic things, I'd say. But we also have a few things that are specific to the crafting system that maybe we'll talk later.
No, we can get to the crafting system right now. So this has to do also with like the city building system that you have. There's like this large city in the game that is basically like the big town hub that hosts all these things, but maybe talk more about that.
Yeah, so the city is quite big, as you will see, but we wanted to avoid the just to have a classic hub that you go through back and forth, just to do a few things here and there and just forget about it. We wanted it to be really like what we call a downtime place with lots of features to unlock, because the city will progress and as you play the game through the campaign and even more. So you will acquire points that you will be able to unlock some features in the city, for example the apothecary to craft some potions, or the jeweler to craft some rings. There's lots of features that's not here at the beginning, and the players will have the choice to unlock them as they are pleased while they progress in the game.
So these are effectively permanent upgrades to your character and
yes,
to the city that allows you to do more things.
Your characters are always bound to a city, and as you upgrade the city, your future characters that you create in the city will benefit from those upgrades. And when the multiplayer gets live, it will also be shared by all the players and all the characters from those players in the city.
So you can actually share the progress with your friends when you play together in multiplayer.
Yep.
Or you can share it to your alts when you make other characters.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems like a very nice feature to have. And it seems like there are many different avenues of progressing your character pretty deep into the game, with the gear, the Wyrmling, the level ups, and of course the city. So maybe can you talk a little bit more about, okay, how important is, for example, the story? How much of the game is basically unveiled at the start of early access versus the full game? And then also, how does it go beyond the story into the end game?
Yeah, during the early access, the player will be able to play through the first chapter of the campaign, and once they complete it, they'll gain access to the endgame content.
And the endgame content is mostly about this thing called the Hunter's Board, where you can continue with endgame hunts that are basically preset quests with modifiers and set difficulty, so that it's a bit harder than the campaign. And in those hunts you will basically travel the world, including some places that you didn't see during the first chapter, do quests and do some specific endgame activities such as dungeons and something called the Test of Will, an arena with waves of monsters when you can basically fight indefinitely until it gets too hard.
So the difficulty ramps up there and you can actually test your character.
At first you will have this big board with lots of hunts, and you will, each time you finish a hunt you gain something, which is, it can be a passive skill, it can be a bonus, it can be a rule, because you will have some rules that you can unlock for another system that is the random hunt, when you can pretty much create random quests with random objectives in different maps. And with the rules you have unlocked, you can customize those hunts so that you can pretty much do what you prefer to do, or target farm or whatever.
Okay, so speaking of target farming, are you actually planning to introduce like systems for people to, go after certain items, go after like certain upgrades that they really need for their character?
Yeah, that's the goal. We plan to, if you really need a specific slot of item, or if you prefer to just focus on your Ancestral Grid, you will be able to select exactly what you need in this random hunt mode.
And can you tell us more about what types of hunts are available even? So you talked about certain like quests that you can do, but yeah, the arena. So is that all of it, or is there more?
There will be more, I guess. You want to talk about it?
In the early access launch, the players will have hunts that takes place in the environments of the first chapter. So that will be the swamps, the jungle, for example. But they also have some endgame hunts or hunters hunts that will take place in different biomes, like islands or even underwater levels, which are pretty exciting, I guess.
Pretty different, yeah.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. Maybe while we're on the topic, can you also talk about just the general roadmap of what you can expect during this year? And like, when is the early access actually going to end, at least with your current plan right now? And what kind of features would you also still like to introduce besides what we discussed?
Yeah, as we just said, the first update is planned for the spring, and we'll have a new environment and enemies, and also a new boss. That all relates to the north biomes, so like in tundra levels, or even like an Iceland type of level. There will be a new dungeon in this kind of environment too. We'll have another update planned for the summer with the tracker, and also new biomes, more on the volcano sides, even like stronghold environments, like underground fortress, things like that, and the final boss also.
Yeah, because we didn't talk about the boss too much, but every big boss is supposed to be one of the main dragon lords that you're supposed to hunt for the story.
Okay, yeah. So these are like big epic boss fights, and are there also other like smaller boss fights in between? How much of a focus is there, for example, on bossing versus just regular mapping, for example? Like how's the balance between what types of enemies you fight?
Well, at the end of every hunt you will have major bosses, but for the endgame system, doing boss, sub-bosses or just big elite monsters will be the focus.
And what is kind of the challenge, like the actual end game encounters, like the hardest thing in the game? Like, okay, we talked about the trial of will, or the test of will.
Test of will.
Yes, with the arena and the waves. But are there also other like really challenging encounters, like those bosses, that you really need to like buff your character up for in order to achieve them?
As I said earlier, this is this big hunter board, and each hunt is going to be with a set difficulty. So the higher difficulty are going to be very challenging.
Okay. I'm just asking because, in the ARPG genre, of course, we expect a lot of replayability, a lot of grinding, and this is very important when a game launches. And if that comes with the start of the early access, and people actually have something to do, and not just play through the chapters and do some maybe early endgame content and then be done with it. But this is not the plan. So you actually want people to be engaged and stick to their character and go for dozens or maybe hundreds of hours. How long is the expected, let's say, highest end progression that you think people will actually invest into a character?
Well, for the first chapter of the story, we have some estimation. But
yeah, but for the end game, we like to say many hours.
You can hope.
We can hope. But yeah, the campaign can take a bunch of hours on its own, like maybe 6 or 9 if you can take your time. And
just for the first chapter.
Just for the first chapter, yeah.
So this is just the first chapter, and then it's going to be more chapters after that.
Multiple chapters with a big boss at the end every time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you begin the end game. And on your alt, you'll be able to do this a little bit faster because of the city that is already pre-built, and you have all of the extra modifiers.
And you can skip to the end game directly if you need to. You don't need to redo the story.
Okay, so you can actually start there at level 1 if you want?
Yep.
Are you going to be strong enough to do that?
Once you have completed the story once.
Yes, you need to finish it at least once, and then you can start from the hunter's board, and it's going to be at your level, but with the set difficulty. So it might be a bit challenging, but it's doable.
Okay, so that's actually very interesting. So an alt can actually get started right away, skip everything if you want.
Yep.
That's a very interesting choice. Yeah. Another pretty big feature of RPGs is also character customization, not just in the build, but also, for example, in the appearance. So do you have plans for like introducing transmogs or other systems in the game already that allow you to change your appearance, or maybe even buy MTX from the in-game store like in other games? Or how would you like to go about this?
At the moment, we do not plan to have a transaction shop, but we have a transmog system to change your look, to have a different look than your gameplay. We have another system that we didn't talk about, which is an ornament system, when you can have an add ornament on your armors, only for high-level armors though. Yeah,
for visual and gameplay impact.
So you can really show off your high-end gear to other people.
Yeah. And of course, for the early access, we plan to have a few cosmetics also.
Yeah, players that will play the early access will have a bunch of cosmetic
for their characters,
and the city.
And the city.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have to do something special in the early access to achieve this?
Oh no, they will be given freely to the players that buy the early access.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't talk about is how do the controls actually work in the game. So when you play a character, for example, consoles are a pretty big topic as well in RPGs these days. We see this in other games as well, controller support, console support. Are you going to have a console version? And also, what are the control modes, for example, for PC players?
Yeah, the console version of the game will be released when the game is fully complete. After the early access, but we handle the control with gamepad on the PC version as well, and we also have the keyboard and mouse movement controls.
Yeah, we try to encapsulate every type of movement you can have in the genre, so you can move with your mouse or you can move with your keyboard. Of course, you cannot move and cast at the same time, it's not that type of game. But
and when there's a console version available later on and multiplayer, will there be crossplay in the game, or are these separate modes?
So no, sadly we haven't planned the crossplay version for the game.
Okay, so console and PC will be separate.
Yeah.
All right, and I think this pretty much wraps up all of the questions that I had, at least. I hope I could also answer a lot of your questions with what we talked about here. So go check out the Dragonkin Steam Early Access. It's out right now. You can get to play it right away. And of course, follow along as the news roll out, as the updates come in. And you can also watch me play the game on my streams and also watch some videos of my own on my own channels. So go check them out as well. And with that, do you have anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, we are eager to have feedbacks from players, so we can find you can find us on our Discord. We are happy to see you there and have lots of feedback, we hope.
Please join us.
Okay.
Maybe too desperate.
Well, in that case, thank you guys very much. It was a pleasure to be here. And, well, good luck in Dragonkin.